Hello everyone, this is Frank and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about whether in 2020 now you can replace your computer with your iPad. As we have known that in the past couple years, Apple has improved the performance iPads leaps and bounds, and to where people are describing it with the words like desktop performance, a really capable machine. So people have been talking about this very topic. Can you actually do most of your work that you can't do on a traditional computer and replace it with the iPad? For the past couple of years, since I really enjoyed using my iPad, I've been trying various different either workarounds or apps that could potentially put my day-to-day computer need to iPads. And for a good portion of that, I am very successful. There are really good applications and softwares that's available in order for us to do that. But I do have to let you know that at this point in time, for me personally, I still don't feel comfortable to give up 100% of my regular computer. And I'm going to go over some of the details why I say that. But on the other hand, I do see that with how capable the iPads are, there are certain groups of people that can absolutely use an iPad alone as their computer without needing a traditional laptop or desktop setup. Let's go into the details. So when we're comparing performances, right, a lot of people are used to the idea of comparing what hardware you got, which generation of chips you have, what are the performance scores that's being run on the benchmark test. I do see the validity in that for one particular part. But at the end of the day, when you put all of those components together, if software and hardware are not working so efficiently together, regardless of how high the performance score is on an individual element, you are most likely not going to be able to get out of that performance that you expect of that so-called high score on benchmark. So what I'm going to do today is to compare how well that these two devices, an iPad and a regular computer, completes our day-to-day task, and how much more convenient that they make our lives to decide whether or not it's a functional replacement. So I would like to start with going into some of the things that the iPads are really good at and what makes it stand out. First and foremost, as an Apple device, it is a very put together machine. I mean that by both hardware and the software. Of course, you are getting this beautiful design, this giant display to utilize, and Apple has been really good at building the efficiencies between the hardware and the software. Every single thing, every single component is put together to utilize fully the capability every single hardware has to offer. So that's why sometimes you may see very similar scores to the devices that we're comparing at, but the performance of actually completing a task, if you're talking about things like exporting video and exporting projects, and they are absolutely not losing to any of those competitors exactly because components are so well integrated with each other through software. And second, this is a touch-first device, which means that the interactions that we normally do with space and movement are just absolutely smooth and intuitive with this device, because that's how we normally interact with our surrounding world. And because of that, things like annotating, taking notes, drawing, just feels so right. Actually, I've moved all of my photo editing to the iPad. I just love being able to hold my picture right there on the giant screen and having that feedback with your finger and or your Apple Pencil when you're editing. It makes me feel like I'm interacting with my work a lot more. That level of intimacy of interacting with your photos and with your work is just only achievable by doing this. And of course, when we talk about iPad iOS, we cannot ignore the fact that how safe and secure this whole platform is, because Apple utilizes its own coding system and it has a really strict criteria when they evaluate applications that's being put out there through the App Store. So whenever you get software from the App Store, you know that it is being evaluated by the engineers at Apple, and they are following the rules to protect your information, your safety, and they are built to run on these devices to utilize all of the capacity of the hardware and being efficient at the same time. A lot of these softwares, I just feel like they're done with such care, and it is one thing to have a set of features available in an app, right? But it's a whole nother level. In a lot of the applications that I see on iOS and iPad OS, that level of care, the aesthetics, and the design is just there. It's just a better experience to the point that I am completing a lot of the tasks solely on the iPad without even considering the website or the software available on my regular computer. And next, as an iPad, it is extremely portable. I can just fit it in any bag that I normally carry, and it doesn't really add a whole lot of weight. Of course, there are new accessories that's there that does add a little bit of a bulk to the iPad itself, but you're not restricted to them. You can feel free to just take the iPad and have all the processing power there, because everything is in that one package, and so easy and convenient to go wherever you want to go. And speaking of accessories, because it is Apple, as we know, and there's so many great options available, whether it is the Apple branded accessories or some third-party ones, you can find some great options to make your experience even better. Add an Apple Pencil, it will make your painting or drawing or annotating or note-taking a lot better. And add a keyboard, you now have a complete tabletop setup that powers through whatever you need that's typing focused. It is flexible, portable, well put together, and certainly a very capable device. But now I'm going to move on to the things that I still go to my computer for, and some of the things that I still do not have on iPad. And these are the things that forces me to still keep my regular computer around. We'll start with number one, the Pro softwares. A lot of these Pro softwares are simply just not available. Things like Final Cut, Premiere, or if you're not into these creative workflows, a lot of the softwares that's used by math students and engineering students for statistical analysis software or model building software are not available on these devices. Second point on that end is a lot of the Pro features of the regular softwares we use are not there yet on the iPads. A lot of these apps currently available are what I call a light version of the regular app that's on the normal traditional computers, like Photoshop or Microsoft Office, for example, which has a good chunk of the features that you can utilize on the iPad software, but there's still things like cross-referencing data for an Excel formula between files. That's just simply, I have not yet found a way to do that. Which leads me to a next point, the file management system. I know the way that the file management system that's currently being set up is so that your information are not shared between the applications, and it is to keep your information safe. But I do prefer a more regular computer-like-ish software where it is a little bit more free in between different softwares, but I guess that is the trade-off we're currently evaluating, right? The safety versus convenience. A lot of these tasks, I understand, some of them are hardware restrictions. A good majority of them are not because the hardware is not there. It's simply because those softwares needs time and resource to develop and integrate into this particular platform, which is totally understandable. And of course, as the generations of iPads gets better and better, the hardware will get more and more capable to take on more and more tasks that we throw at them. But I just, being me, I just wish that day is today, right? I just wish, as a user, as an end user of those functions, I just really love to be able to see a lot of those capabilities being brought to the iPad systems. And of course, there are improvements that are restricted by the hardware, like a lot of those Pro software that I mentioned simply requires so much RAM that on the traditional computer that is simply not put in the iPads. But I'm really curious to see whether the iPad version of them will, number one, still need all of the RAM for it to run, and number two, will they produce the same amount of result? So yeah, we're looking forward to that. But also that brings us to another point of running things on iPad OS or iOS. By conforming to this platform, it means we have to follow Apple's preset rules of how we do things, right? A lot of these tasks that we want to do can certainly be completed on the iPad, but for people that are so used to operating on a traditional computer, it may take a little bit of a learning curve. Let me offer you an example here. I think this would apply to a lot of people, especially a lot of us are working and studying at home nowadays. For me, I normally have a lot of things open at the same time on my desktop, and I love to be able to just multitask really quickly in between these windows. I can just play pause music. If there is a call I need to answer, I can just drag and drop things in between emails and to send them out as attachment, and I can just see all of these things in one glance in my desktop on my regular computer. Whereas if I were to complete all of these tasks that I just described on an iPad, which is absolutely doable, I can certainly see myself going in, having to resize the windows, because you can normally only do two things at a time on the iPad, and to make sure they look right, find the right apps and put them back on the screen again. It just adds a little bit of process to the whole completing the task. So what is the answer here? There is a lot of pros and cons with either. For me, it comes down to whether or not you need those pro softwares or those pro features in those softwares that we talked about. If you do, please still keep your computer. I've been trying to utilize different tricks, workaround, and applications to make things done. A lot of them are doable, but they just add a little bit of time or process to your day-to-day workflow for the amount of work that you utilized with those pro softwares. I think you are better off keeping the computer, although I do think it is worth having the iPad as an additional device, simply because a lot of those other features are so well done and so complementary to what you have for those features on your computer. But if you really don't necessarily need those pro softwares or pro features, I say go all out. It is a little bit of a learning curve trying to get used to the iPad OS coming from a traditional computer, but I do think the added benefit of having a giant touch play, having the ability to interact with the content you're looking at so intimately on the screen would be the added benefit. So the hard requirement would definitely be the pro softwares or the pro features, and the remaining decision would be how you prefer to interact with your content. A regular computer and an iPad are certainly two very different things with a lot of in common for sure, and I personally enjoy being able to interact with the content a lot more directly with this touch-based interface, but again, a lot of people prefer to using a mouse and keyboard to navigate on their screen. So capability-wise, these iPads can definitely take on a lot of tasks that you throw at them on a day-to-day basis. It really comes down to your personal preference. If you are picking up one of these, I have another video comparing the difference between the Magic Keyboard, which is just released, and the Keyboard Folio case that Apple has been selling along with the iPad Pro, and which one of these two accessories would be better fitted for your needs. Hopefully to see you back in the channel soon. Subscribe for updated content, and I'll see you next time.